It was a Friday night, and the small town of Willowbrook was plunged into darkness. Autumn had arrived with a vengeance, bringing with it the biting wind and dry leaves that swirled in the empty streets. The city park, normally bustling during the day, was now enveloped in an unsettling silence. Tonight, four friends, Sarah, Mike, Lisa, and Tom, decided to go for a walk through the park, hoping to enjoy the cold weather and share horror stories. As they walked the winding paths, the conversation soon turned to urban legends and horror stories. It was a common pastime between them, fueled by nights like this. Lisa, the group's official spooky storyteller, began talking about a local legend that had intrigued her since she was a child. "Have you ever heard of the Midnight Clown?" she asked, her tone whispering to heighten the suspense. The other three shook their heads, looking curiously at Lisa. "Well, they say that decades ago, there was a clown who used to visit our town," Lisa began. "He was a cheerful character during the day, performing tricks and entertaining children at birthday parties. But at night, when everyone was asleep, his true self emerged." Lisa continued to tell the story of the Midnight Clown. It was said that, under the glow of the moon, he roamed the city's streets in search of children. Children who saw him at night mysteriously disappeared, and the city quickly began to fear the clown's presence. Mike laughed, thinking it was just another scare story. "These evil clown stories are all the same," he said dismissively. "It's just an urban myth. I don't believe it's real." Sarah, the most skeptical of the group, agreed. "Exactly, Lisa. We can't take these stories seriously. They're just legends to scare children." Tom, however, wasn't so sure. He enjoyed a good horror story and was intrigued by the legend. "What if we did something different this time?" he suggested. "Let's investigate this Midnight Clown story and find out if there is any truth behind it." The friends' eyes met, and a shiver ran down their spines. The idea of a nocturnal adventure in search of a frightening legend seemed exciting and, at the same time, chilling. They decided to visit the old abandoned circus on the outskirts of town, where they said the evil clown used to perform. With flashlights in hand, the group made their way to the site as the dark night became even more impenetrable. The wind howled through the tree branches, creating an ominous sound that seemed to echo through the darkness. The feeling that something was wrong grew as they approached the abandoned circus. As the group approached the abandoned circus, the atmosphere became increasingly oppressive. The moon, although hidden by dark clouds, cast a weak spectral light over the place. The wind seemed to whisper dark secrets, and the twisted trees around the circus creaked ominously. The old circus, now covered in a patina of rust and decay, stood before them like a grim reminder of a lost past. The worn-out tents and rusty arches created a desolate landscape. It was a place that evoked memories of glory and entertainment, but was now doomed to oblivion. Tom led the group inside the circus, and his flashlights illuminated the scene. The dirt floor was covered in dry leaves and cobwebs, and the wind howled through the empty arches. Amidst the gloom, the friends felt like intruders in a place forgotten by time. As they explored the inside of the circus, the silence was deafening. Each step echoed, increasing the feeling that they were being watched. Shadows seemed to move and dance around him, casting doubt on what was real and what was just an illusion. It was at that moment that Lisa bent down and pointed to the ground. The flashlights directed the light where she pointed, revealing an unsettling mark in the earth. It was a large footprint with the unmistakable pattern of a clown shoe. The group stared in disbelief at the clear print. Is this real?" Sarah asked, her eyes wide with shock. Tom knelt down to examine the footprint. "There's no denying it. This is a clown's footprint. It's like the ones we see in the movies." Mike, although less skeptical than before, was still trying to find a logical explanation. "There may be a reasonable explanation for this. Perhaps it is an ancient footprint that was hidden by the leaves until now." Lisa shook her head. "This footprint appears recent, and the legend of the Midnight Clown tells of how he leaves his footprints as a warning." The group was divided between fear and curiosity. What they found could just be a strange footprint, but it could also be the beginning of a terrifying experience. As they debated what to do next, the wind picked up, whistling through the rusty arches and creating a chilling trail. Sarah finally broke the silence. "Whatever it is, we shouldn't underestimate it. If there's a chance that the Midnight Clown is real, we should be cautious. Tom agreed. Let's go back to the city and research more about this legend. Maybe we can find clues or stories from witnesses. The group made their way back through the abandoned circus, feeling that the night had become even more sinister. As they returned to town, the footprint in the packed earth continued to echo in their minds, like a subtle warning of the dark presence that stalked Willowbrook. The Midnight Clown was closer than they could ever imagine. Back in town, the group gathered at Tom's house for the next phase of the investigation. The atmosphere was tense, but curiosity overcame fear. Everyone was determined to discover the truth behind the legend of the Midnight Clown. Tom, the group's amateur researcher, dove into the search for information. He scoured the internet for any mention of the evil clown. As he investigated, he found witness reports and stories that further added to the mystery. Missing children, nighttime sightings, and disturbing encounters were all part of the haunting narrative. I found an old newspaper article, Tom said as he read it aloud to the group. It mentions the last time the Midnight Clown was seen in town decades ago. The town organized a hunt for the creature, but it managed to escape and disappear into the forest. Lisa, who had always been drawn to horror stories, looked at her friends with a gleam of excitement in her eyes. That's amazing. It means the clown might still be around. Sarah, on the other hand, was worried. We should be careful. We don't know what we're dealing with. Maybe it's best if we don't touch it. Tom, however, had an idea. What if we tried to find someone who had a recent encounter with the clown? Maybe they could give us more information. The friends agreed and began searching for people in the city who might have seen the Midnight Clown. It was then that they came across an intriguing report on a local blog. A resident, whose name was Jonathan, claimed to have seen the clown in the park at night. They contacted Jonathan and arranged a meeting to hear his story. Jonathan was visibly distraught and hesitant to share his experience, but eventually agreed to speak to the group. He described how he was walking home one night after a night shift at work, when he saw a tall, ominous figure in the park. The figure was dressed like a clown, with colorful clothes and a conical hat. However, what terrified him was the evil smile on the clown's face and its empty eyes, which seemed to stare at him with dark desire. He whispered incomprehensible words as he approached me, Jonathan said, his voice shaking. I was so scared that I ran home and locked all the doors and windows. It was the most terrifying experience of my life. The group thanked Jonathan for sharing his story and promised to investigate further. They realized that the legend of the Midnight Clown was far from a hoax, and the sinister presence in the city was real. That night, they decided to return to the abandoned circus in hopes of finding more clues about the evil clown. The atmosphere was even more tense, but the group's determination was unshakable. They knew they were entering uncharted territory, where fear and truth were intertwined in a dark web. As they approached the circus, the night seemed darker and more oppressive than ever. Their flashlights illuminated the path, revealing unsettling shadows dancing around them. The clown footprint in the packed earth was still there, a silent reminder of the Midnight Clown's presence. The group knew there was more to discover, and they were determined to face the unknown. The mystery of the evil clown was about to deepen, and the truth was closer than they ever imagined. As the group approached the abandoned circus on that dark night, the silence was almost tangible. The atmosphere filled with fear surrounded them, but they knew they needed to continue the investigation to unravel the mystery of the Midnight Clown. Flashlights lit the way as they entered the abandoned circus once again. The place seemed even scarier than the first time. The wind howled through the rusty arches, creating a chorus of laments that echoed in the minds of friends. Each step seemed to echo like a drum, announcing his presence in the shadow realm. As they explored the place, they clung to the hope of finding more clues about the evil clown. Tom was determined to discover the truth behind this terrifying legend. He examined every corner of the abandoned circus, while Sarah, Lisa, and Mike remained alert, observing their surroundings. It was then that Tom found something unsettling. On a worn wall, he saw a series of words written in red paint. Below the words, a disturbing drawing depicted the smiling face of a sinister clown. The group gathered around the find. The words and drawing seemed like a clear message from the Midnight Clown. "That's scary," Lisa whispered, as her eyes fixed on the macabre drawing. "He knows we're investigating." The tension increased as the reality of the situation dawned on them. There was no way to deny the existence of the evil clown any longer. They were in his territory, and he was aware of their presence. Tom, however, was determined not to back down. "We need to move on. There's more to discover here, I'm sure of it." They continued to explore the abandoned circus, staying together in a tight group. Every sound became a potential threat, and the shadows seemed to twist as they advanced. The wind carried with it an unsettling murmur that echoed through the empty corridors. In a worn-out tent, they found a pile of old circus posters, dusty and yellowed with age. The posters featured images of smiling clowns and performers performing daring stunts. But there was something wrong with these posters. The clowns depicted had distorted smiles and empty eyes, similar to the evil clown. The discovery left the group goosebumps. "This is disturbing," Sarah said. "These posters seem to echo the appearance of the evil clown." Tom agreed. "It looks like the clown left his mark here, like he's reclaiming this place." They decided to leave the circus abandoned and return to the city. It was evident that the evil clown was following his every move. However, the group couldn't just abandon the investigation now. They were determined to discover the truth behind this dark legend. That night, as they gathered at Tom's house to share their discoveries and reflect on what they had faced, a sense of unease hung in the air. The Midnight Clown was closer than ever, watching them from the shadow. They knew the next step in their investigation would be crucial. The confrontation with the evil clown was inevitable. The group prepared for the final battle, determined to solve the mystery and end the legend of the Midnight Clown once and for all. The fate of the town of Willowbrook was in the hands of these four friends, facing the unknown and the terror that awaited them.